Senator Inhofe.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Dr. Carter, I apologize for not having been here, and I don't want to ask something that's been asked over and over again. We have a conflicting meeting that's taking place right now. Everyone who's appeared before this committee has talked about the mismatch that's out there, unprecedented mismatch. And I'm talking about all the chiefs. I'm talking about the old timers. You know, as you know, we had George Shultz, Kissinger, Albright, all of them searched their memories and could not find a time in our history when we have the level of threats that we're faced with today and the limited resources that we have. And that's the mismatch that they are talking about with the things all over the world. I mean, that are taking place right now. Do you agree with that? And let me restate that. In the years that you've had such a variety of experience, do you ever remember a time like this?
I think we are in a time where the number and severity of the risks is not something I've seen before in my life.
Yeah, how do you, even the president, after what happened yesterday, I'm sure is not talking about junior varsity anymore. We know that we have a really serious problem with ISIS, with ISIL. We've been talking about the fact that they're building a militia, and we now have seen the brutality and what they're capable of. And I just wonder sometimes if I would like to have a stronger response from the president when the disaster took place yesterday. But do you, I fail to see a strategy in terms of dealing with ISIS, with that force that's over there. Do you see a strategy, and where will you be on this?
Thank you. I can describe what I believe to be the strategy, and just to revert to what you said at the beginning. You know, it was we used to, when I started my career in defense, it was a simpler world. There was one big problem, which was
Those were the good
Cold War and nuclear disaster. To get to your point, I assume that this is what your other witnesses were saying. It's a much more complicated world, much more many-faceted, and many more problems and issues for the United States to take on. At the same time, I believe we're up to it, and that we're capable of surmounting all these problems. With respect to the strategy for ISIS, I would describe it in the following way. Strategy is about connecting ends and means, and the end here is the defeat of ISIS and the sustained or lasting defeat of ISIS. And to achieve that lasting defeat of ISIS, we are trying to rebuild the morale and power of the Iraqi military and the confidence of its government that in a multi-sectarian approach, so that we don't revisit the Maliki experience, which led to the disintegration of the Iraqi security forces. So on that side of the border, the lasting defeat will be made lasting by an Iraqi security forces and associated forces in Iraq that are rebuilt. One enemy, two locations. To get to the other location, Syria, I believe the approach there similarly needs to be to inflict a lasting defeat, and in order to do that, we need a partner. And we are trying to build that partner in terms of a moderate Syrian force and local forces from the region that can, with our air power and other kinds of assistance, inflict defeat on ISIS and then make it a lasting defeat. So that's how I'd characterize what I see. I'm obviously not in the councils of government, but that's what I infer.
Yeah, and I appreciate that very much. And Dr. Carter, when you were in my office, we talked about having just returned from Ukraine and also Lithuania. When I first walked in, Senator Heinrich was talking about Lithuania, Estonia, in that area. Their concern was that all of our attention seemed to be in that part of the world concentrated on Ukraine. What's true? We've never had, you know, I happened to be there when they had their election for the first time in 96 years. They don't have a communist in their parliament in Ukraine. So we have that problem at the same time as the others you're addressing. And what do you think about our European strength as it is right now? Are we adequate? Are we becoming inadequate?
I think that our strength in Europe is our alliance with NATO and the political solidarity that represents, which is very important when it comes to the Baltic states, and also the response in Ukraine, which, while not a NATO nation, is certainly a European nation, and European unity is an important part of that. So one of our strengths is that. Another strength, of course, is our military strength. There I understand that we are adding forces, rotational forces, to the Baltic states as a presence there, as a deterrent to any Russian kind of adventurism on the part of Russia in those states. I certainly support that, and if I'm confirmed, I'd want to look into what more we can do to do that. I'd also say I wish the European states, and many Secretary of Defenses have said this over the years, were investing more in their own defense.
Yeah, well, and lastly, I'm out of time, but for the record, if you would submit this for the record to me, in the event we were able to get the perpetrator of the horrible crime that took place, would you examine the expeditionary legal complex that we have as a place to do our interrogation? I heard your response to the first question, but we at least consider that.
Sure, I'll learn more and respond.